Traveling is something that I absolutely enjoy from the moment I leave my house to the moment I get back. And that's maybe surprising to a lot of people to hear because, oh, being on an airplane sucks. You're uh, just doing nothing for several hours or anything like that. But I actually cherish every moment on an airplane because that's when when I'm able to like disconnect, and I try not to follow my temptations of buying Wi-Fi or anything. I try to disconnect. It gives me the time to really work on things that I want to work on without disruptions. For example, like that's when I do the most reading, and I'm fortunate enough that I read a lot, and being on an airplane is definitely where I do most of it. I also work on Shark Valuation or any other ventures that I'm doing on an airplane a lot of times. It's such a peaceful experience for me to be able to turn off my phone, turn off my email, just focus on one thing for 3, 4 hours or whatever it is without any like disruptions or anything to drive you away from that. And I'll even often like skip on meals on an airplane just to not have to talk to a flight attendant. I'm like, okay, like I'm focused. I don't want anything to do with anyone right now. And I get a lot of work done. And then I get to my destination, and that's when I get to explore. I get to meet new people, and just learning about other cultures is absolutely fascinating to me. I always thought that America or the US in general was just like one big culture that is somewhat the same. You go from Miami to Seattle, it's pretty much the same, right? It's two big cities. You got the same corporations, you got the same businesses, same hotel names, everything is similar. You don't see any differences. And that was always my impression of the US until I went to Alaska. I went to Alaska and I'm like, okay, this is a completely different culture, different people that live in this land. Obviously, I'm talking here about the natives to Alaska. And I did a tour of of their culture and how they used to live, up to recently. And that's stuff that I could never imagine. I mean, living in that weather, in those conditions, with the wildlife and animals around you, you live a completely different life than what I see in Chicago.
Right.
And those are the things that intrigue me when I'm traveling. It's like, how do people live, and what are the differences between societies and cultures? And because of that, I will go anywhere, anytime, and I absolutely have no problem getting lost in any country.
Do you have a top country that you're like, all right, if you don't go anywhere else, go here?
I think for that, I would say I'm going to give a general answer to like people at varying experiences with travel. I'm going to say Japan. And I say Japan because it works for someone who's been to 100 countries, and it works for someone who's never been outside the country. And you get to see a different culture. You get to see a different attitude with people, and like just different order. You see people, they're very organized. Everything is on time. It's very like impressive how Japanese culture operates. And from someone in Chicago where like everyone's jaywalking and trains are never on time, you go to one of the busiest intersections in Japan and maybe in the world. I don't want to butcher its name, but Shibuya. And literally, as soon as the light turns red, there's not a single person in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
And that Japan is definitely a place that I recommend to anyone because of how different it is, but also how doable. It's easy to get there. You're not going to run into any major issues. If you have little to no experience in travel, you're going to manage just fine and enjoy it.
Yeah, because I went to Japan 2019. The travel experience, getting from Tokyo to Kyoto, it was very seamless. No trouble with not understanding the language because English is pretty commonly spoken there, especially with the workers. So I really enjoyed my time in Tokyo and in Kyoto. You get, the big city experience. You get the more traditional Japanese experience in
Oh, and it's
Kyoto,
beautiful.
and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
The mountains, the flower gardens. I mean, Kyoto is beautiful.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, Japan is just a nice place to visit, and I had the mentality, and I do that anywhere I go. But when I was in Japan, I was like, you know what? I'm not using GPS. I'm gonna just go wherever my legs take me. And I ended up seeing some of the coolest things ever, man.
Wow.
When I went, it was also 2019, actually. It was around July 4th, the holiday. And they must have had some elections going on in Japan. So they had like banners of like politicians everywhere. And the funny thing is, like, they had the banners of the politicians in like anime style.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like you'd see someone that's like running for what I assume a important position in Japan, but it's like anime style of him, and it's like everywhere. It was like that to me was just like interesting, because like you would never see that here.
Right.
Imagine like someone releasing a cartoon version of them running
It
for
would
president.
more so be mocking the candidate.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, there it was like a legitimate campaign effort that was completely acceptable, and it was just pretty cool. Like, I walked into a neighborhood that was like blocks on blocks of arcades. Literally, I didn't even like intend on going there, but I probably spent 4 or 5 hours just walking around the neighborhood, because I was like, what is this? Why is there like a whole neighborhood of arcades?
Yeah.
And that's something I do wherever I go. I just don't use GPS. I go wherever. It has put me in some sketchy situations. Luckily, nothing that was too terrible. But I'd rather experience those things than to say, "Oh, I wish I went there one day."